この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。I loathe inconsistent decks. Maybe it's a lingering disdain from my trading card game days, but when I see 3 arts cards supporting a Buster Noble Phantasm, I instantly cringe, because actually supporting this playstyle is always instantly a chore. With the deck I've used as an example, the only Brave Chain flush the Servant with this sort of deck can perform is an Arts Chain, but never with their Noble Phantasm. The statistically strongest chain they can then produce is Buster Arts Buster, which requires either an overall attack boost or 2 effectiveness boosts output simultaneously to be properly supported, and it grants no additional flush chain bonuses. What's the point? To balance the Servant? Or are the developers over at Delightworks thinking that this will actually help the Servant's NP gain while also granting them a stronger Noble Phantasm? Well, in the case of Gohou Shoujo Shuten Douji, I'm willing to believe it might honestly be a little bit of both. Not content with just having the highest max base attack stat of all SSR Assassin class servants, Shuten now takes the mantle of having the highest max base attack stat of all SR Caster class servants. Being an Oni truly has its consistent perks, and it benefits the newbies and free-to-play masters alike, since she takes quite a lot of advantage of having that attack stat. Though, not as much as she could have if only she wielded a single extra Buster card. Though, in regard to this neutering, she can restore some of that lost potential with her own built-in support to shut my earlier gripes up. Break Rod B, her second skill, which boosts both her arts and Buster effectiveness at once, and even increases her star weight dramatically. Granted, there are a few problems with this core skill. For starters, all of these effects only last a single turn. Okay, fine. But then her lowest reachable cooldown for this skill is 6 turns. So instead of waiting 3 turns for these boosts to return, I'll be waiting for 5 at minimum unless I utilize some outside skill or Tamamonomai's Double Phantasm. Lastly, this might have gone over a few of your heads, and I don't blame you, but check to make sure you have a copy of Fragments of 2030 on hand, and even then, 8 stars isn't a lot to spread across ideally more than a single card of Shuten's. Since she's built to be a boss killer, that likely means you're going to be spotting her with support servants, likely other caster servants like Hans or Waver Velvet, and arts cards are notoriously bad at dropping critical stars. Are you really going to splash in that one quick card they each have when you could be making consistent arts chains instead? I'm sure you'd rather at least use the occasional Buster card to put at the front. My point is, making the most of that second skill, what I honestly believe to be Caster Shuten's most important skill, will take a bit of planning and consideration before the average player can get comfortable with it. Otherwise, it will come down to 2030 and extra attack cards to get her critting. But hey, there is always Han's Innocent Monster skill to supplement. You should probably level that. Alright, that was pretty long-winded talking about just a single skill. Surely that isn't all Caster Shuten's about, and it's not, but it's certainly her most interesting aspect. Her third skill is a straightforward but potent charisma skill with an additional special attack modifier provided exclusively for Shuten, granting the party up to a 20% overall attack boost, and for Shuten, up to another 50% attack modifier against demonic enemies. Now, this trait fortunately applies against many bigger, uglier, annoying mini-boss enemies, such as the Hydras, Bicorns, Soul Eaters, Sea Demons, Demon Boars, Gazers, and even Hermit Crabs? But regarding servants, this only applies against the Oni. I guess she doesn't even trust herself. So this skill basically reveals Caster Shuten as glorified pest control. What about her first skill, you ask? Well, it's an NP seal. A little odd to give a boss killer a completely stall-focused skill without any offensive benefit or even secure protection, but hey, if she's up against just one enemy, which is her entire purpose anyway, then I guess it isn't too unorthodox if it keeps her alive. Good thing it comes with a critical chance debuff, since I really do not like betting on the RNG firing off skills instead of performing normal attacks, which Shuten wields no protection against. I personally would level this one last, and you'll need to be a bit careful deciding on which skill to level in the first place, since of course it's a trademark by this point. Shuten loves bones, so you're going to need a lot of bones. 36 for each skill to be exact. Hey, you're already lucking out with her ascension materials. It could be much worse. Or better, depending on your point of view. In no way does she necessarily trump her SSR original, but she has basically a whole new kit in this form, so it's not entirely fair to compare them. However, if you have Medea, or particularly Queen of Sheba, that's some pretty direct competition. These two have vastly superior spamming potential, but Shuten has greater firepower than either of them. Queen of Sheba has a skill capable of ignoring invincibility entirely while lowering defense with her NP, meanwhile Shuten only possesses sure hit on her NP, with an additional but fairly potent poison for 5 turns. And Medea clears the enemy of all of their buffs after she lands her own NP, which she can land whenever she wants. There are 2 SSRs who fit this field too, but good luck getting either of them. If you're curious though, I honestly prefer Ilya the most between the 2, and even over Caster Shuten. Too bad she's limited. Oh right, and then there's Team Mascot and Pocket Bird Kirky, who is more niche than anyone I've mentioned up to this point, and also wields a single-target Noble Phantasm. For some reason. She's a whole other can of worms by herself. So, this choice ultimately comes down to situation, style preference, and, as to be expected, character favoritism. On a conclusive note though, while I have clearly hesitated at calling Shuten the best, or even the most triumphant in strangeness, every one of these other witches, save for Medea, is also either limited, story-locked, or just plain gold. The key thread among them is that you have to be lucky to obtain them, and it's hard to say no to simply having one of the technically strongest among them for free. Unless you didn't complete Lost Belt 2, in which case, I guess just stick with Medea.